12 spine-chilling Appalachia horror tales, uncover the sinister secrets of the haunted trails. Sarah's heart raced as she drove into Wicker Hollow, the eerie mist swallowing the quaint town whole. The dense fog wrapped around her like a shroud, clinging to her car as if warning her to turn back. Ghostly whispers echoed through the trees, chilling her bones. This place was alive with secrets, more than just a fresh start. The old diner loomed ahead, its flickering neon sign barely breaking through the fog, casting unsettling shadows across the cracked pavement. She shivered, dread creeping up her spine like icy fingers. At 32, alone with her 5- and 8-year-olds, Sarah had no choice but to take the night shift. The diner was infamous, known for its dark past that sent shivers up any local's spine. Drawn to the stories of missing hikers and the absent, Sarah pushed aside her fear and stepped inside. The smell of burnt coffee and despair hung thick in the air, wrapping around her like a cold blanket. The diner was sparsely populated. Only a handful of weary truckers eyed their plates suspiciously, words unspoken between them as if their unshared fears could fill the room. Every night felt heavier. Shadows flitted just beyond the tree line, and the muffled cries that slipped through the cracks of the diner's old walls scratched at her sanity. Am I just imagining it? She'd breathe silently, her hands trembling as she poured coffee. But the sensation of being watched became a heavy weight, dragging her deeper into the gloom. One night, as she wiped down the counter, Sarah stumbled upon a trapdoor hidden beneath a faded rug. The urge to explore surged through her, curiosity mixing with dread. The basement was cluttered with old newspapers and artifacts, knives of dread puncturing her as she read the headlines: Local hiker vanishes. Mystery of the Appalachian trails, whispers of the lost. Each item screamed of stories left untold, stories swallowed by the woods, stories about people who had vanished, never to return. Before she could let the fear consume her, a charming local politician named John Mason walked in. His smile blinded her with its brilliance, captivating the sparse audience. Wicker Hollow will thrive, he declared, rallying the diners, his voice silky smooth but laced with something else, something sinister. The allure of his promises felt like a trap. She swallowed hard, unease bubbling in her throat. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Snow began to blanket Wicker Hollow that evening, a crushing silence falling like a weight on her shoulders. Comfort turned to unease, familiarity twisted into fear. Her neighbors, once friendly faces, now appeared shrouded in mystery. Whispers haunted her, merging with the wind, a shifting tide of mistrust pouring into her mind. She glanced at her children. They were sleeping soundly, unaware of the darkness creeping closer. As the candles flickered low, Sarah felt it again, the weight of eyes on her from outside, shadows brushing against the windows. The woods whispered secrets meant to ensnare the unsuspecting. Was she, too, being watched? Just as panic gripped her, a voice sliced through the silence, a chilling echo that called her name from the depth of the forest. In that moment, a heavy knock echoed through the diner, striking her heart with terror. Who or what was waiting for her outside? The sound hung in the air, like the blade of a guillotine. Sarah froze, breath caught in her throat. The truckers turned their heads, eyes wide with uncertainty. Did you hear that? She whispered, aware of the tremor in her voice. Another knock, this one sharper, more insistent. It vibrated through the diner, warning of a presence that had materialized from the shadows. Sarah, the voice called again, soft but dripping with malice, almost playful. It was undeniably familiar. The hairs on her neck prickled, recognition clawing at her consciousness. Her own name felt like a curse in that moment, twisted by an unseen force. Something deep inside her churned. The candles flickered wildly, casting dancing shapes across the walls. In fleeting shadows, she saw faces, anguished and pleading, as if the very spirits of the lost were lining up at the door, begging to be remembered. "Maybe it's just trouble," muttered one trucker, his voice a rasp. He stood, brushing crumbs from his jeans. "I can check." But the moment he reached for the door, a gale screamed from the night, and he stepped back, eyes wide, shaking his head furiously. "No way. No one should be out there, not now." Fear ballooned in Sarah's chest. No, she thought, she could not allow this. She had children to protect. As the knock sounded again, her resolve sharpened. She had to confront what lay in the darkness. She moved to the door as another knock sent a jolt through the wooden frame. It was followed by silence, a momentary stillness that dripped with dread. Each second dragged by like the weight of snow as she hesitated, hands stretched toward the knob, heart racing. "Sarah, come on, don't open it." A voice cried from the back, the other diners murmuring in frantic disbelief. But the voice from the woods wasn't just outside, it was inside too, echoing in a way that made her stomach twist. "Mommy." Her youngest, the 5-year-old, stirred, eyelids fluttering open. His scared gaze immediately found hers, mirroring her own horror. "Stay back," she shouted, eyes fixed on the door, now a threshold to an unspeakable nightmare. She swung back to her son, her heart racing like a wild drumbeat. "It's okay, we'll be safe." But she could hear it again, quiet this time, nestled in the silence of winter. Sarah, the name curled around her heart like an icy vine, squeezing tighter. Before she could gather her courage, the door burst open violently, slamming against the wall. The gust of cold wind clouded the diner like a sudden storm. There stood a figure, barely illuminated by the dim light. "Hello, Sarah," the figure said, voice smooth like silk, threaded with something sharp. Fear knotted in her stomach as she stood frozen, the air around her thickening like a warning. Was this the end? Or simply a beginning too twisted to comprehend? The diner erupted into chaos, shouts and cries merging into a cacophony of terror. Sarah's vision fixed on the figure. He stepped inside the diner, and just like that, the air shifted. "Join us," he whispered, eyes glowing with an uncanny light. Everything inside her screamed to flee. The faces of the truckers morphed into masks of dread, losing their humanity to the menace before them. In that moment, Sarah knew. She was not just a victim, she was about to become part of Wicker Hollow's terrible tale. And as the lights flickered, the night opened its insatiable maw to absorb them all, she realized there was no turning back. Questions exploded in her mind. Who was this figure? What did he want from her? And as she stepped back, a plan formed suddenly, one of defiance amidst the encroaching dark. But would she have the strength to face the horror waiting for her? The moment of truth was slipping away, and she had to act before it was too late. The figure's presence filled the diner with a frozen dread. Shadows roiled around him like a living cloak, clutching at their sanity. Sarah felt the urge to scream, but her voice betrayed her, silent against the oppressive shroud. She tightened her grip on the doorframe, knuckles whitening as panic constricted her chest. "Join us," he repeated, his lips curling into a sickening smile. The words hung heavy in the air, thickening with dread as if reality itself conspired against them. One trucker bolted for the bathroom. Another grabbed a heavy chair, brandishing it like a weapon. "Get the hell away from here," he shouted, voice shaking but fierce. "Listen. We need to stick together." Sarah called to the others, her voice rising above the fearful din. Children's whimpers mixed with panicked cries, shattering the illusion of safety. "Stay back," Sarah ordered again, stepping in front of her son. As she did, the temperature plummeted. Breath turned visible, ghostly puffs wafting in the now palpable terror. The figure chuckled, low and chilling, his eyes reflecting an unholy light. "You think you can resist me? You think your love can shield you from what I offer?" His smirk deepened, revealing jagged teeth. Sarah felt a surge of something, maybe courage, maybe desperation. "What do you want?" she demanded, her voice trembling yet defiant. "To bring you home," he replied, his voice almost melodic, laced with a haunting sincerity. "Once, this diner was a sanctuary, my refuge. Now it belongs to them." He gestured behind him as shadows thrummed in response, writhing like angry serpents. "Stop! Just stop!" yelled one of the truckers, his face pale, veins evident against skin like parchment. In that moment, he became the embodiment of fragile hope, a flicker against a dark tide. But hope was fleeting as the figure's eyes burned brighter, igniting a fear so profound it twisted Sarah's gut. "Home offers peace," he continued. "All you have to do is let go. Let me take you." "They are waiting," the shadows whispered at his sides, dark fingers beckoning toward the terrified patrons. "Mommy!" The whimpering voice of her son broke through the chaos, dragging her back. She looked at the innocent blue eyes filled with fear and confusion. Her heart splintered. "No!" she screamed, pushing back against the suffocating darkness that encroached from all sides. Reality teetered on the edge of madness. Sarah's mind raced, piecing together memories of the past, whispers of the woods that had never felt safe. "What do I have to do?" she cried, feeling the warmth of her child's hand gripping hers. "Just believe," the figure said, lowering his voice, coaxing secrets from shadows. "Surrender your fears, embrace what awaits, be one with them." Suddenly, the lights flickered again, plunging the diner into an abyss. Gasps echoed, and the tablecloths trembled as if alive. The whispered promises of the shadows thickened, their siren call seductive. Then, with blinding clarity, Sarah realized a primordial truth. This wasn't just about her. It wasn't just a struggle for survival. Wicker Hollow demanded a price, a choice steeped in blood and sacrifice. "What if I refuse?" she challenged, a sliver of defiance slicing through her panic. The figure's grin widened, his eyes narrowing. "Then the shadows will come for you and your little one." The clientele gasped collectively, panic overshadowing the dim lights, faces etched with unspeakable fear. Her heart raced wildly. Outside, the wind howled like a banshee, a tempest hungry for souls. Sarah's grip tightened around her son. She had to save him, she couldn't let the shadows win. But could she protect him without succumbing to the very darkness she now faced? Each breath felt like a countdown as she stared into the figure's taunting eyes. The shadows whispered all around them, hissing promises of belonging, and then silence fell. A chilling stillness before the storm. What was the right choice? As the lights flicked back on, illuminating the figure with an eerie glow, Sarah felt the weight of the decision settling upon her shoulders. The diner was a battleground now, and the looming shadow sought to lead her astray. Was there a way out? Or were they already lost? Only one thing was certain, the nightmare had only just begun. The air crackled with an energy that was almost electric, a tension that drew tight like a noose around the throats of the diner's occupants. Sarah's heart thudded against her ribs, each beat reverberating in her ears like a war drum. She could see the fear in the eyes of the truckers, reflected in the glassy sheen of their sweat-soaked faces. "Mommy, I'm scared," her son whispered, and his small frame trembled against her side. Sarah squeezed his hand tighter, its warmth anchoring her. "Shoo, I know, sweetheart. We'll be okay," she lied, pulling him closer, her adrenaline-fueled bravado beginning to falter. The figure shifted, a predatory grace in his movements. "You're all so close to home now," he purred, his voice sliding into every ear like a snake. The shadows coiled tighter around him, their whispers now a cacophony that filled the diner, crawling into the minds of the patrons. "Can't you feel it? The peace that awaits you. Embrace it." The trucker with the chair stood firm for a moment longer, but his resolve cracked as another wave of darkness surged forward, lapping at his ankles. He stumbled back, falling into a booth with a thud. The chair clattered away, forgotten. The lights flickered again, causing shadows to dance like flames across the walls. Sarah felt her pulse race as fear gnawed at her resolve. "We can't let them take us. Don't listen. She shouted, her voice sharpening amidst the chaos. But it was too late. A couple at the counter had already begun to sway, eyes glazed over like marionettes captured by an unseen puppeteer. Their bodies leaned towards the figure, and Sarah's stomach twisted at the sight. No. Snap out of it. She yelled, but the diner was filled with the intoxicating allure of surrender, the promise of sweet oblivion. The figure smiled wider, a smile that split his face, stretching too far, revealing a maw filled with teeth that seemed to drip shadows. They want what is owed, he crooned, voice dipping lower as if it was a lullaby rather than a warning. You should join them, it's a weight lifted, is it not? The gusting wind outside picked up, rattling the windows, a reminder of the storm brewing just beyond the walls. An icy chill seeped in, a ghostly hand that grazed the back of Sarah's neck. She shivered but stood her ground, clutching her son's hand with fierceness. Protect your heart. A voice cried from a dim corner of the diner, a frail woman with trembling fingers raised in warning. It's what they want. They'll take it. Don't let them. The crowd turned towards her, a flicker of recognition sparking amidst the panic. Stay together. Sarah shouted, rallying whatever strength she had left. We can fight this. But the shadows responded, a shifting tide of despair that surged forward. The figure stepped closer, his face mere inches from hers. You think love can shield you? He mocked, breath like frost. The shadows thrive on fear, and you are wonderfully afraid. A siren of terror sang through the diner, swirling like smoke. The patrons who had been resisting faltered, their resolve bending beneath the weight of dread. Little by little, eyes dulled, bodies leaned inexorably toward the figure, drawn as if by a magnetic pull. Mommy. Her son's voice was small, but it was the panic behind it that turned Sarah's blood to ice. She stepped forward, a desperate gamble. If you want me, take me. Leave him alone. The figure's eyes locked onto hers with predatory intensity. Ah, but it is not just you I want. I want your love, your life entwined with the shadows. Beneath her feet, the floorboards creaked with a hungry whisper. But then she spotted it, a flicker, a moment of defiance among the retreating diners. The fragile woman from the corner, her trembling fist raised. Fight! She screamed against the tide. In that instant, the shadows hesitated, swirling around them in indecision. But just as hope sparked anew, the figure smiled wider, and the lights died. Darkness roared back in a suffocating embrace, and Sarah felt herself being pulled into the void, everything closing around her. What would be the cost of escape? Would they pay the ultimate price, or could they find the strength to rise against the shadows? The silence rang out like a death knell, and Sarah could only hope she wasn't too late. Sarah felt the darkness wrap around her, thick and heavy. It compressed against her chest, squeezing the air from her lungs. She grasped her son's hand even tighter, as if that simple act could tether them both to the remaining glimmers of hope. Mommy? His voice trembled, barely audible in the engulfing gloom. Stay close, she whispered, fighting to sound calm. Her heart raced, blood pounding in her ears. Panic whispered toxic thoughts into her mind. What if she lost him? What if this was the end? In the pitch black, her other senses heightened. She heard the whispers. The shadows weren't just around them, they were inside the diner, clawing into the minds of the inhabitants. Through the haze, she could hear soft sobs, gasps, and murmured nonsense that didn't make sense. Then came a crackling noise, like ice breaking underfoot. A split second later, the lights flickered to life, revealing a scene of uncanny horror. Faces contorted in ecstasy and distress, eyes glazed over like moths drawn to a flame. The couple at the counter stood, hand in hand, their mouths slack, caught in a trance. The figure, now vivid in the waning light, stepped into focus. He tilted his head, studying her with an unsettling curiosity. Ah, you are truly special, he cooed, the shadows curling around him eagerly, as if they intended to consume him too. Such a strong heart, it beats louder than the others. Get away from us. Sarah shouted, a surge of courage coursing through her, even as doubt gnawed at her resolve. Somewhere amid the pressing darkness, she felt the weight of her defiance. I can give you unimaginable peace, he intoned, voice syrupy sweet, almost hypnotic. All that pain and fear gone. Just let go, and you'll see. Yet a glimmer of resilience sparked. We aren't afraid of you. She yelled, as her son squeezed her hand, echoing the strength she barely felt herself. We won't give in. The figure's smile faltered for an instant, a glimpse of anger flickering behind his facade. Then he recovered, laughter bubbling like dark foam. You misunderstand. It's not you I want. With a swift gesture, he turned his gaze to the fragile woman in the corner, who had raised a trembling fist just moments before. No. No. Sarah cried, but the shadows surged toward the woman now, tendrils slithering along the floor, beckoning her toward the figure. The woman screamed, raw terror splitting the air, a sound so piercing that it momentarily cut through the suffocating darkness. Fight it. Please. But the hypnotic pull of the shadows was irresistible. In mere moments, they enveloped her, and she vanished into the void, leaving only silence behind, her scream echoing in the hearts of those who remained. Do you see? The figure asked, his tone dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. That could be you if you don't surrender. I can offer you liberation. He stepped closer, his presence suffocating, shadows swirling like a tempest around them. No. Sarah's voice cracked with terror, adrenaline surging as she tugged her son back, their feet ready to bolt. But the shadows lunged, wrapping around their ankles, anchoring them in place. Every instinct screamed to fight, yet the darkness whispered sweet promises of peace, drowning out her thoughts. Mommy. They're coming. Her son's wide eyes reflected sheer panic, his tiny body quaking. In that moment, Sarah's gaze flickered between the figure and her son. She felt that tug of war inside her heart. Love clashed violently against survival instinct. She had a choice, but what if she let go? What if letting go meant true freedom? Fight! Echoed the woman's voice in her mind, returning like a haunting refrain. Just as she was ready to shout a defiant command, the figure laughed, deep and echoing. You can't fight what you cannot see. Suddenly, the walls of the diner began to pulsate, the wallpaper peeling back to reveal a dark void behind it, shadows spilling out and swallowing all light. Would anyone ever escape the shadows? Would they find the strength to stand against the horror waiting in the depths? As the shadows surged, Sarah closed her eyes, whispering a prayer to the unknown. A final question hung in the air: what price would she pay to protect her son? The shadows tightened their grip, a cold tendril snaking up Sarah's leg, anchoring her to a reality that felt more like a nightmare. Every suggestion of their promises, a soft, alluring whisper, tempted her to let go. Yet the sound of her son's whimpers pulled her back. Mommy! His tiny body trembled, eyes wide and desperate, searching her face for solace. Hold on to me, Sarah managed, willing her voice to stay steady. The figure approached, his expression one of delight, as if he relished the torment he was inflicting. You see their fear, don't you? He said, gesturing toward the frozen diners, their faces cracked with anguish. They all did what you're considering now, they let go. But you, dear Sarah, you fight such spirit. It makes the hunt all the more interesting. Just then, another shudder rippled through the diner. The floor beneath them pulsed like a heartbeat, each thud resonating through Sarah's body. She glanced around, the light flickering ominously, revealing glimmers of the curved shadows slipping through cracks, whispering secrets that warped her mind. Mommy, don't listen. Her son screamed, the raw urgency in his voice echoing through her fear. I'm here. She squeezed his hand tighter as the shadows writhed, pressing closer, hungry. But now a flicker of defiance flickered in her chest. If they were trapped, maybe they could turn the tide. Who are you? She shouted at the figure, anger emerging as embers in her fraying courage. What do you want? His smile widened grotesquely, revealing teeth that seemed too sharp, too pointed. What I want, dear Sarah, is your acceptance. You deny it now, but deep down, you know the truth. Your fears, your grief they'll consume you. Join them. Sarah's mind reeled with snippets of confusion. Questions and memories flooded her thoughts. Despair clawed at her edges images of happy moments with her son, battles lost before they ever began, reminders that the world could snuff out light in an instant. Stop it! She shouted, voice rising above the cacophony of whispers. You won't take him. For a brief moment, the shadows faltered, like ripples shivering across a pond. The figure's eyes narrowed, infuriated. You think you can resist? The darkness is all around, it's woven into the very fabric of your soul. Suddenly, the diner shifted again. Walls folded inward as the shadows coiled tighter, shrieking like banshees. Sarah staggered backward, pulling her son closely. They were teetering on the edge of something terrifyingly potent, a power she didn't fully understand. Can love fight the dark? Her mind raced. Can it conquer the shadows? As if answering her thoughts, she remembered the woman's scream, a beacon of grief and loss. Sarah opened her eyes to find her son staring at her, filled with a desperate kind of hope. Believe in us, sweetheart. She said fiercely. No shadows will take you from me. With a deep breath, Sarah released her shame, surrendering to the fierce love swelling inside her. She would face whatever came, her heart a shield. In that moment, blinding light exploded from her as if her love had ignited. Walls trembled. The shadows screamed, recoiling from the radiance that surged outward. But in a heartbeat, the figure grinned, vibrant malevolence flashing in his eyes. Ah, but you've merely awakened the beast. It won't stop with just you. The light dimmed, shadows regrouping, a cacophony of chaos swirling around them. Run! Sarah screamed, and with that single command, they bolted for the entrance, the darkness reaching for them like clawed hands. Would they escape in time? As the diner's doors loomed before them, a chilling thought prickled the back of Sarah's mind. What if the only way out led deeper into despair? The diner doors were almost within reach when a shadow lashed out, scraping the back of Sarah's ankle, freezing her in place. She gasped, pain biting through the haze of fear. It felt as if ice had coursed through her veins. Mommy! Her son's voice trembled like a fragile thread, pulling at her sanity. No! Keep running! She forced herself forward, willing her limbs to move despite the heavy weight of despair. Each step felt like wading through quicksand, while guttural whispers swirled around her, clawing at her resolve. The figure lingered at the edge of the light, his eyes narrowing with a sadistic kind of excitement. You think you can escape? You think this ends with you? He raised a hand, and the shadows surged forward, lunging for her son. Stay close! Sarah cried, grabbing her son's arm, pulling him tight against her. But the shadows swirled like dark serpents, drawn to the flickering light bursting from her heart. I want to let you take him. She screamed, heart racing, breath quickening. The diner felt alive, pulsating with menace, walls twisting as if they were alive, forcing them into the very depths of despair. Her feet found their rhythm, urgency surging through her as they darted towards the door. Then, the entrance shifted, morphing into a grotesque maw, swallowing their escape. Panic surged, the dark tendrils coiled around her son's legs, dragging him backward, the sound of his whimpers slicing through the chaos. Mommy! Help me! No! The rage in Sarah's chest ignited. With a guttural howl, she lunged forward, her body a shield as she grasped her son's trembling form. Together! We can break this! As if in response, their connection raw and pure exploded into a halo of light that shattered the encroaching darkness. The shadows hissed, retreating as if stung, allowing a sliver of radiance to pierce their shroud. But the figure's laughter slithered through the air, echoing off the warped walls. You may have delayed the inevitable, but you can't escape forever. The darkness hungers and soon, it will feast. Tendrils of shadows writhed, revengeful and relentless, attempting to weave their way back, clawing as Sarah tightened her grip on her son. They edged towards the doorway, intuition fighting against the pull of the darkness. In a moment of desperation, Sarah turned. "What do you want?" she shouted at the figure, a sudden flicker of courage igniting her voice. "You want despair. How can you benefit from it?" The figure tilted his head, a glint of amusement flickering in his eyes. "Despair is a sweet nectar, my dear. It feeds me. It amplifies my power. And soon, I will show you just how exquisite it can truly be." The shadows retaliated, whipping through the air, enveloping them in a suffocating hug. She felt the chill inside her, greedy, hollow, and her heart slammed against her ribs. Then realization dawned, a horrifying connection sparking in her mind. Maybe despair was the key, the way to understanding their captor's depths. "Find our light," she urged her son, pushing them both back, gathering strength. "Remember, love conquers fear." With renewed determination, Sarah turned, their breaths mingling in frantic rhythm. The shadows howled in frustration as they forged ahead, heart racing as the warped doorway closed, leaving only a glint of eerie light behind them, but out of that light came the whispers, the voices of the diners, drowned in hopelessness. "Help us, they're coming for you." Her heart plummeted. Sweat mingled with fear on her brow. What lay beyond the doorway? Would they face the same fate as those ensnared? As they charged through, a deafening explosion of sound erupted behind them. Wood splintered, glass shattered. The diner imploded, darkness swirling in a frenzied dance. "Run, Mommy!" her son screamed, and Sarah felt a heavy dread lurking in her core. What awaited them in the world outside? And could they really escape the shadow's grasp? The air thickened with a new presence, something far more sinister than she could have ever anticipated. The world outside lashed at them with frantic energy. Wind howled like a wounded animal, tugging at their clothes as they stumbled from the remains of the diner into a realm cloaked in darkness. Shadows stretched further, bleeding into the night, lurking just beyond the feeble glow of the streetlight flickering overhead. "Mommy, where do we go?" Her son's voice broke through the swirling insanity, thin and quaking. Just keep running," she panted, glancing over her shoulder. The figure stood at the diner's wreckage, his laughter mixing with the dissonance of splintered glass. He was a silhouette against the chaos, waiting, watching. "Hurry!" As they sprinted down the street, past abandoned cars and silent homes, Sarah felt shadows nipping at their heels, grasping like cold hands hungry for life. The whispers intensified, a dreadful chorus echoing in her ears, urging her to turn back. "Join us, stay with us, you cannot escape." Each word lingered, clawing at her resolve. "Mommy, I'm scared," her son cried, his small legs struggling to keep pace. She could barely breathe, urgency thrumming in her veins like a beating drum. Pushing through the terror, she gripped his hand tighter, fingers interlaced, drawing strength from their connection. "Stay close. I won't let go." They sprinted past a playground, its swings creaking in the wind, eerily rhythmic, as if coaxing them to play. Thoughts of their sanctuary, the park's laughter and warmth faded under the tide of horror. Soon, she spotted a dim light ahead, an open gas station, its sign flickering erratically. "Over there!" she shouted, praying. The promise of safety fueled her, and they dashed toward the light, shadows prowling just beyond their vision. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed, illuminating stacks of old newspapers and canned goods. The air smelled stale, yet the flickering light felt like a refuge. She paused, breathless, scanning the aisles. "Mommy!" Her son tugged her jacket, urgency overtaking his voice. "Look!" At the back of the store, a figure shrouded in darkness loomed, a stranger standing still, watching. Panic seized her heart. "Who are you?" she choked out, instinctual dread taking hold. The figure didn't move, just stared, an unsettling grin carved into the shadows. "Help us," it whispered, words curling around them like smoke. "They're coming. They'll find you know." She pulled her son close, shaking, her instincts screaming to flee. We need to go. Now. As they turned to escape, the chilling laughter of the lurking figure behind them echoed the same laughter that had haunted her nightmare. It cut through the haze, drawing her back to the door. A sudden tremor shook the ground. The shadows outside began spilling in, twisting and writhing like serpents desperate for prey. Run! Sarah shouted, pushing her son ahead as the shadows surged, relentless. They barreled towards the door, but it slammed shut just before they reached it. Glass shattered, sending sparks into the air, and the gas station plunged into darkness. The lights flickered out, plunging them into imminent despair. Mommy! Her son screamed. Stay right by me. Panic clawed at her throat, the darkness pressed in, heavy and suffocating. The air felt like a suffocating blanket, like they were drowning in the very blackness they feared. Then, a low rumble of thunder shook the building, and the stranger spoke again, louder this time. You cannot escape what you've invited. In a flash of lightning illuminated the figure's face, a mirror of her own desperation. Was it too late to turn back? The deafening silence drowned the gas station, as the shadows writhed, encasing her and her son in a tightening noose. Time seemed to stretch, every heartbeat echoing in the void. Just as darkness closed in, Sarah remembered the flicker of love that once ignited their escape. Find our light! She cried, echoing the strength of their bond. What would come of it? Would they uncover a way through? Or had they unleashed a greater evil? As the shadows lunged forward, Sarah felt their grip clawing, tightening what awaited them in that impossible darkness. The shadows lunged with furious intent, clawing at the edges of Sarah's mind. They felt alive, a living tide of darkness that crashed against her resolve. She clutched her son, his small body trembling against her, and at that moment, the weight of despair threatened to suffocate her. Find our light! She urged again, desperation spilling from her lips. But where? In this thick darkness, light felt like a fantasy, a deception of the imagination. The gas station stood like an ancient relic, crumbling yet defiant, but its lights were extinguished, its warmth swallowed whole. Help us, the figure rasped, voice winding around her, a venomous caress. They'll find you and you'll join us. Sarah's heart raced. Don't listen. We have to find a way out, she hissed, pulling her son closer as fear seeped deeper into her bones. They stumbled backward, but the only direction seemed to be deeper into the ominous store. Suddenly, flickers of fluorescent light danced within the dark, faint and erratic, signaling something alive still lingered. Sarah seized on it, urging her son onward. Come on! She shouted, dragging him behind the aisles. Each step was a battle against the oppressive darkness that hung around them like a shroud. Mommy! Her son's voice cracked, terror clearly etched in his small features. What if it gets us? Just focus on me. Sarah didn't know how much longer she could shield him. The air thickened, stinging her lungs, whispering threats that sent shivers spiraling down her spine. They burst around a corner only to find themselves faced with what could only be described as a nightmare. Shelves aligned like soldiers, their contents scattered as if the very world had cracked open. And there, at the heart of the chaos, lay a stairwell that spiraled downward into unfathomable darkness. That way. Sarah pointed, her voice trembling but demanding. Her son hesitated, glancing back toward the growing shadows, drawn to their chilling embrace. The laughter echoed once again, a dissonant melody, coaxing them, promising safety in surrender. But Sarah could hear the dread within it, see the glint of malice in those lurking shapes. Now! She yanked him forward, breath hitching as the shadows writhed, recoiling and converging as if they were aware, watching. Together, they plunged into the spiral, the air growing colder with each hurried step. The dim light flickered above, splashing faint shadows on the peeling walls. Uncertainty gnawed at her. Where did this lead, and what awaited them below? Suddenly, a loud crash resonated from above, like thunder clapping in their ears. She shrieked as what seemed to be a heavy object tumbled down the stairs, crashing beside them, sending shards of debris across the floor. Her son's terrified scream sliced the air. "Mommy! What was that?" "I don't know. Keep moving." They dashed further down, the flickering light playing tricks on her mind, the darkness clawing at their heels. The laughter erupted again, louder now, filling the space with madness. "Mommy! Just trust me." As another piercing crash sounded behind them, terror surged higher. They reached a door, rusted and ancient, its frame shuddering as if something was desperate to get in. The shadows converged, suffocating the space. "Push!" she shouted, launching herself against the door, feeling her son's hands against her back. That it swung open, revealing a narrow tunnel lined with rough stone. Silence descended momentarily, eerie in its stillness. But the darkness behind them was relentless, and Sarah could hear the whispers rising again, desperate promises that twisted her gut. "We have to keep moving," she panted, before the first whisper broke through the silence, an echoing refrain reverberating down the tunnel. "Join us, come back, stop!" she shouted, the echoes taunting her, slicing through her fraying composure. With no time to think, they stepped deeper into the tunnel, cold and claustrophobic, shadows lurking just out of sight, ready to swallow them whole. What happened if they reached the end? Could they find freedom? Or was this tunnel just another trap leading them closer to what hunted them? Each echoing footstep felt like the harbinger of doom, reverberating through their very souls as they pressed onward. But something stirred ahead, the growing sound of a heartbeat, or something worse, what waited at the end of the tunnel. Could it truly be their salvation or something far more sinister? As they continued through the tunnel, an eerie pulse resonated in the walls, like a heartbeat throbbing against the weight of the darkness. The shadows crawled behind them, relentless and ravenous, feeding off their fear. "Mommy, I'm so scared." Her son's voice wavered, reaching into Sarah's heart like a dagger. "I know, baby, but we're going to be okay," she managed to whisper, forcing her trembling legs to keep moving. With each step, the oppressive atmosphere pressed down more heavily. The air reeked of damp earth and despair as whispers coiled around her, a taunting lullaby. "Join us, stay with us." It felt as if the shadows wanted to reach out, grab their hearts, and snuff out their hope completely. But then, a flicker of light appeared ahead, weak but undeniable. Hope surged in Sarah's chest, a fragile flame battling the encroaching shadows. "There's something up ahead. We just need to reach it," she urged, pushing her son toward the glow. His little legs pumped harder, instinctively urged on by the promise of safety. As they closed the distance, the light morphed into a small opening. It shimmered in stark contrast to the darkness surrounding them. Sarah felt exhilaration coursing through her. Just a little more. She cheered, pulling her son along, willing herself not to collapse under the weight of darkness chasing them. Suddenly, in their path stood the figure, blocking the glow like a thunderhead eclipsing the sun. He loomed larger than before, shadows rippling around him like a storm. "Welcome home, Sarah," he whispered sweetly, darkness swirling around his feet. "You should embrace it. The shadows are only a reflection of your greatest fears, your hidden self." "No." Sarah's voice cut through the tension, harsher than she intended. "I refuse to let you take us." Anger surged in her heart, a raw power igniting something deep within her core. "I'll never give in to your darkness." She felt her son squeeze her hand, a lifeline anchoring her to the resolve they shared. The figure's grin twisted into something almost sadistic. "You think you can resist me? The shadows only grow stronger when you fight. Surrender. It's what you truly desire," he hissed, jutting an arm toward the darkness expanding like an inkblot behind him. The shadows snaked closer, tendrils reaching like desperate fingers for their warmth. In that moment, Sarah's mind flickered. Love isn't something to fear. It's a fire that could burn bright enough to sear the darkness. She clutched her son's hand tighter, remembering the laughter they shared, the warmth of their evenings together. "You're wrong. Love is stronger than any fear," she shouted, words echoing in defiance, fuel for her insistent light. with each word, the shadows shuddered, recoiling from her declaration. Encouraged, she took a step closer to the luminescence. "We are not afraid of you. You'll never have us." Their connection blazed and bucked, illuminating the tunnel, pushing back the encroaching dark. The figure faltered, anger thickening the air. "No. You can't." His voice sliced through the tension, a cacophony of outrage raging against the glimmer of light. But as they advanced, a radiant warmth enveloped them, cementing their bond against his malevolence. "Together!" Sarah shouted, her voice piercing the shadowed veil between despair and hope. They rushed toward the light hand in hand, hearts pounding wildly against the darkness. As the shadows clawed at them in desperate fury, they leaped through the small opening and into a blinding white light that consumed them whole. For a heartbeat, everything was quiet. No whispers, no chasing darkness. Just pure, sweet silence washed over them. Then, as the brilliance dimmed, she found herself standing in a clearing. The sun broke through the trees, illuminating the soft earth beneath her feet. Her son stood beside her, eyes wide with wonder. He looked unscathed, the weight of dread lifted. They were free. But then the familiar voice echoed, a haunting reminder lingering behind them. "This isn't over, Sarah, you're wrong if you think I'll come back," she called to the darkness. As a fierce wind whipped through. "You can't take what I want, surrender." In that moment, the shadows twisted and shrank, retreating into the deep woods, leaving Sarah and her son alone amidst the warmth of sunlight. "Mommy, we did it!" He cheered, his laughter like music that pulled her out of a lingering dread. She wrapped her arms around him, holding on tight, feeling the pulse of life course between them. "Yes, we did. We're safe now," she whispered, determination flaring anew. Though a shadow lurked in the depths of her memory, it didn't paralyze her anymore. They would heal together, carving out new memories that would drown out the past. With her son in hand, Sarah turned toward the sun, a new dawn breaking across the horizon. They would venture back to the world, a new world, brave enough to embrace the shadows and fill them with light. But as they stepped forward, she couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows still lurked, waiting in the fringes of the mind, biding their time until they were needed again. In Wicker Hollow, life would go on, the Diner's stories woven into the fabric of forgotten legends. But Sarah and her son would be different. They had faced the darkness and had chosen to embrace the light, forever changed by the sinister secrets they uncovered. Now, as the echoes of the past faded into the distance like whispers in the wind, their journey was far from over. But the real question was what tales awaited them next. You need to subscribe now to join us for the next chilling chapter of our adventures. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now. Let's feed the algorithm. And don't forget to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this haunting conclusion. Plus, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this epic finish. Don't wait even one more second. True fans know every click makes a difference.